Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Alright, without further ado, let us dive straight into the recap of Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy Part 18. Now, for those of you who may have forgotten, in the previous part Samal, the interworld gate entity summoned by Makoto, felt an aura that was extremely familiar to him. After thinking back, Samal finally realized that he had once been asked by the foolish goddess to transfer two people. From that, he concluded that Makoto was likely the child of those two individuals, which was why Makoto's aura felt so familiar to him. Hearing this, Makoto immediately became suspicious that the people Samal was referring to were his parents. That suspicion turned out to be correct. Samal confirmed that the goddess had once said she would take something important from Makoto's parents as payment, and in the end, Makoto himself was the one sent to another world as the result of that agreement. To Samal, it was extremely amusing to see Makoto now trying to return to Japan, because in his view, Makoto was actually someone who had been discarded. Those words made Makoto look even angrier. He told Samal to be quiet, because this creature's arrogant and irritating personality was exactly the same as the goddess herself. Without wasting any more words, Makoto told Shiki and Tomoe to prepare for battle. Now, let us continue to part 18. The story begins when Makoto immediately fires at Samal, whose form resembles a massive gate. However, the attack simply bounces off without having any effect at all. Samal appears irritated that a human dares to show hostility toward him, a being of godly status. With overwhelming arrogance, he opens the gate and spews out dozens of monsters at once. Even so, Makoto and his group are able to eliminate them all with ease. Samal even questions Makoto's sanity for daring to challenge someone of his level. Hearing that provocation, Makoto responds with complete calm. He states that what just happened cannot even be called a fight. If Makoto had felt some hesitation when fighting the demon generals before, this time his mind instead sinks into a terrifying stillness. He has only one objective: observe the enemy, move, and destroy him. Suddenly, the gate begins to shake violently again. Something starts pouring out of Samal's body once more. New monsters appear, far more numerous than before. Samal mocks Makoto, calling him arrogant and foolish. However, Makoto replies in a flat tone, mocking Samal in return and stating that Samal is the foolish one for only being able to fight by summoning weak monsters. The number of enemies pouring out is indeed large, dozens, even hundreds, but by Asura's standards, they are nothing more than trash. Makoto prepares to shoot them down, but before he can even draw his bow, Shiki steps forward. His ring begins to shine, activating Nephilheim on a massive scale. The deathly fog does not merely weaken the enemies, it directly drains the life from any monster that tries to approach. Shiki explains that he felt the need to step in this once, even though Makoto could have eliminated everything on his own. Makoto gives a short nod, allowing his subordinate to deal with the nuisance. Watching his forces vanish in mere seconds, Samal finally shows a hint of caution, even though his words remain arrogant. He acknowledges that Makoto's group possesses enough power to force him to exert more effort. Frustrated, he once again spews out various troops, including those with human, elf, and dwarf forms. However, anyone who crosses into the range of Nephilheim dies instantly, without even having the chance to move. At that point, Makoto finally takes action. He raises Azusa, his trusted bow, and aims directly at the mask attached to the gate. The arrow is released at an insane speed, piercing through Samal's mask and creating a massive hole in its center. Makoto fires several more arrows at the frame of the gate, tearing pieces out of Samal's body. Unfortunately, Samal's regeneration is extremely fast. The damage recovers in only a matter of seconds. Annoyed at being attacked without pause, Samal finally reveals his trump card. From within the gate, a gigantic blue object emerges, a modern weapon, a massive missile that launches straight toward Makoto. However, Makoto has absolutely no intention of dodging. He knows that the weapon will not kill him. Just before the missile strikes, Tomoe appears and apologizes for interfering. Calmly, she uses her power of illusory reality. The missiles pass through their bodies as if they do not truly exist, then vanish like mist blown away by the wind. Seeing his trusted weapon neutralized so easily, combined with the mountain of corpses from his fallen troops, Samal finally begins to falter. In a tone filled with disbelief, he asks whether all of them are gods. However, Makoto responds with complete indifference, showing no interest in answering meaningless questions from a being he is about to destroy. Realizing at last that his opponents are not ordinary humans, Samal decides to stop playing around. He channels his divine power directly into the gate. Instantly, Tomoe senses an unnatural distortion of space around them. She immediately warns Makoto to stay alert, because something far more dangerous is being prepared. Before long, hundreds of weapons from various eras suddenly fill the sky, ranging from ancient swords and spears, Eastern weapons, to modern armaments. All of them float and spin as if performing a deadly dance. With arrogance, Samal declares this to be his masterpiece, a weapon dance guided by understanding, similar to the movements of true martial arts masters. Makoto gazes at the sight with a calm expression. He even recalls a technique once used by Sophia, the Dragon Slayer. Although the number of weapons back then was far smaller, the concept is essentially the same. And to Makoto, as long as those weapons are not wielded by their true owners, they are nothing more than scrap metal moving without a soul. Makoto then states this clearly, that weapons, no matter how finely crafted they are, remain meaningless without the hands of a true master to wield them. A genuine sword master is far more terrifying than hundreds of flying swords that possess no will of their own. As he speaks, Makoto counts the weapons, 112 in total. Without waiting any longer, he locks all of them within the scope of his imagination, and then releases a single attack. Branched light shoots forth from his hand. Within seconds, every single weapon is shattered into fragments. Tomoe and Shiki can only hold their breath as they witness their master once again demonstrate a new boundary of power. After clearing everything away, Makoto looks at Samal with a disdainful gaze that instantly ignites the creature's anger. Samal, feeling humiliated by a mere human, erupts in fury. He feels deeply insulted that despite having lived for hundreds of years and holding the status of a god, he is still considered weak. Makoto firmly states that Samal does not deserve to be called a god at all. Even when compared to ordinary monsters, Samal is not much different. Cornered, Samal actually intends to flee. He begins manipulating space and time in order to open a path of escape. However, Makoto does not give him the opportunity. He continues to target Samal's vital points and shoot them one by one. When the lower part of Samal's body is pierced through, his regeneration weakens drastically. Groans of pain echo from the gate. The monsters that had previously poured out from within it also begin to decrease in number. In the midst of the battle, Samal suddenly screams after seeing something about Makoto that he cannot comprehend. A faint smile appears on Makoto's face, an expression that makes Samal question the sanity of his opponent. That moment is cut short when Tomoe suddenly cries out in panic. She detects a rapidly intensifying spatial anomaly. Even though they are inside Asura, a territory completely under Makoto's control, Samal somehow manages to forcibly create an escape route. Makoto immediately realizes that the arrogant enemy is planning to flee to another world. Samal's body begins to fade, becoming transparent. While escaping, he throws out one final threat. Someday he will return with a higher status and slaughter Makoto's entire world. Tomoe tries to stop the escape process, but the spatial disturbance created by a being of godly caliber renders her powerless. Panic instantly engulfs Tomoe. Strangely enough, that panic only makes Makoto even calmer. All unnecessary emotions vanish from his mind. And when Samal threatens to hunt down Makoto's family and companions in his original world, Makoto's resolve becomes absolute. Makoto will not allow this creature to escape. With lightning speed, he charges through the pile of monster corpses and strikes Samal with magic armor. The attack lands, but Samal's body continues to fade, losing more and more of its solidity. Samal laughs at Makoto, mocking him by saying that in this dimension, distance and time no longer have meaning. According to Samal, it is impossible for Makoto, who does not understand spatial manipulation, to pursue him. The gate is almost completely gone, but Makoto does not care about the dimensional theories Samal is talking about. He activates Sakai, scans for the presence of his nearly vanished enemy, and successfully locates him. Samal's trace still remains. The dimensional rift slowly begins to close, and Makoto immediately takes action. He channels an enormous amount of mana, forming two shining armored arms. According to the gods, these armored arms are the result of creation magic, on the same level as the gods' own weapons. A blinding light erupts from both arms as Makoto prepares himself. Tomoe and Shiki assume that Makoto is about to enter the rift to chase Samal. However, their assumption is completely wrong. Makoto has no intention of chasing anyone. With an icy gaze, he commands his two silver arms to thrust directly into the closing dimensional rift. The two arms tremble violently, clashing against the laws of space that are trying to seal the tier shut. At first, Tomoe and Shiki speculate once again, guessing that Makoto might be tracking Samal's position in order to capture him and turn him into a slave. Based on their assumption, Makoto might want to use Samal as a key to return to Japan. However, just like before, their guess misses the mark entirely. Makoto has absolutely no intention of wasting effort chasing or taming trash like Samal. His resolve is firm. Samal will be forcibly dragged back to Asura, whether alive or dead, to be executed on the spot. As if responding to their master's fury, the two silver arms go on a violent rampage. Mana light swirls around them as the massive arms forcibly tear open dimensional space. The rupture widens until it finally reveals a strange marble-like space, resembling a white corridor standing between one world and another. Seeing the rift fully opened, Tomoe carefully asks whether Makoto intends to use Samal as a path to return to Japan. It is true that Makoto longs for his home. However, without hesitation, he completely rejects the idea. He does not want to have even the slightest connection with a creature he despises. And in front of his followers, Makoto firmly states his principle. Even if the path home is open, he will not leave if doing so means abandoning Tomoe, Shiki, and everyone who has lived alongside him until now. He will only return after all matters with the goddess are settled, and when he can bring everyone who truly matters to him along with him. Those words cause the atmosphere to suddenly fall silent. However, instead of becoming an emotional moment, Makoto actually feels awkward because Tomoe and Shiki do not respond at all. Makoto then turns his gaze back toward the dimensional rift, and here, he does something that leaves both of his followers utterly shocked. Makoto directly thrusts his own physical hand into the violently churning rift. Tomoe and Shiki stare in panic because their master is touching an alien domain that even they do not understand. However, their doubts vanish the instant Makoto's hand grasps something. He seizes the handle of Samal's dimensional gate and pulls with all of his strength. Meanwhile, on the other side of the dimension, Samal, who has just succeeded in escaping, suddenly feels two enormous hands clamping down on his body. He is not given a moment to breathe. His body is forcibly dragged, slamming repeatedly into the walls of the dimension. Makoto pulls without mercy until the battered Samal is finally hurled out of the dimensional rift, spinning through the skies of Asura. The creature appears utterly shocked, unable to believe that someone is capable of dragging him back after he has used interworld teleportation. The moment the dimensional rift closes, Makoto immediately welcomes Samal back. In panic, Samal opens his gate as wide as possible and fires a continuous barrage of destructive beams. However, to Makoto, all of that amounts to nothing more than a joke. His magic armor withstands every explosion without leaving even the slightest scratch. In a scornful tone, he states that Samal's attack techniques are nothing but cheap imitations of things he has seen countless times before. Makoto feels that ordinary blows are far too gentle for a creature that has insulted him and his parents. Therefore, he decides to use a new method of punishment, a technique he names Silver Rush. The two silver arms immediately shoot into the air, savagely striking Samal's body from every direction. Makoto ensures that every blow accelerates his opponent's destruction in the most painful way possible. However, that is still not enough. At the peak of his rage, Makoto suddenly asks for something that makes Shiki shudder in fear. He orders his servant to retrieve Draupnir from Emma's place. Shiki, understanding that his master has truly lost all patience, can only obey and hurry away. While waiting, Makoto continues his assault. Massive fireballs streak forward, slamming into Samal, who is still being battered in midair by the silver arms. Before long, Shiki returns carrying the red bracelet. Makoto then summons 10 fireballs at once, Within seconds, the fireballs twist and reshape themselves into sharp, spiraling arrows. After that, Makoto inserts the Draupnir ring into each spell, doubling their destructive power. Once everything is ready, Makoto releases them. A devastating explosion crashes into Samal's body while he is still suspended in the air. His skeletal frame is torn apart, but his abnormal regeneration allows him to continue surviving. To Makoto, that is actually good news. It means that his toy will not break too quickly. With abundant ammunition, Makoto increases the intensity of his torment. He inserts 2 rings at once into a single shot, creating a rain of magic projectiles that is far more lethal. He deliberately avoids vital points so that Samal does not die immediately, allowing the creature to experience uninterrupted agony. Below, a storm of brid strikes from every direction. Above, the 2 silver arms continue to slap, crush, and hurl Samal's body around relentlessly. The unfortunate creature is not even allowed to touch the ground. He is treated like a toy ball, beaten from above and shot from below without a single moment of reprieve. Watching Samal being treated like a tennis ball, battered from every direction, Tomoe and Shiki can only stand frozen in place. Tomoe, who usually always has a joking remark or a teasing comment for her master, is completely unable to say anything this time. Shiki also simply stares ahead with a blank expression. After a while, the 2 of them realize something. Even though Samal looks completely battered, he is still capable of regenerating. This leads Tomoe and Shiki to agree that Samal is actually an extremely powerful entity, perhaps far stronger than a high-rank spirit. However, that power means absolutely nothing in the face of Makoto's rage. Even the modern missiles that Samal fired earlier, something that had previously made Tomoe cautious, now looked like plastic toys being slammed against a wall. That brutal torture finally comes to an end, not because Samal dies, but because he returns to his original form, an old wooden door lying helplessly on the ground. His divine form is completely destroyed. Makoto does not destroy the object at all. Instead, he completely strips away all the power and souls that Samal has accumulated over hundreds of years. As a result, Samal is now nothing more than an inanimate object that can still think and feel, but cannot move or make a sound. Shiki looks at that object with cold eyes. He even immediately begins planning something, taking it to the laboratory the next morning as new research material. To Shiki, the opportunity to study an entity on the level of a god is a blessing that does not come every day. With the battle over, Asura returns to silence. Beneath the calm night sky, Tomoe and Shiki begin cleaning up the aftermath. Shiki examines the corpses of the monsters summoned from various dimensions, intending to study them one by one. On the way back to enjoy Mio's cooking, Shiki finally gathers the courage to talk about something that brings him the greatest relief. He admits that he is deeply grateful that Makoto has decided not to return to Japan. Hearing this, Tomoe responds with a light mockery, calling Shiki foolish for only realizing it now. However, as they pass through the mist gate, Tomoe murmurs softly, admitting that she feels the same sense of relief. Shiki knows that among everyone, Tomoe is the happiest to hear Makoto's decision. Sometime later, when Makoto returns to his room, he senses a strange change within Asura. Not long after, Tomoe arrives with a report. Feeling that something is abnormal, Makoto, Tomoe, Shiki, and Mio immediately set out to investigate the source of this anomaly. What appears before them is a gigantic structure, a Shinto shrine standing there, as if it has grown directly from the soil of Asura. They pass through the shrine gate and follow the newly formed path until they arrive at the main courtyard. There stands a magnificent Shinto shrine, complete with Japanese architecture so detailed that it makes Tomoe tremble with overwhelming joy. Even more shocking, there is not only one structure, there is also a Buddhist temple and a building with Parthenon-style architecture. Makoto and his followers walk around while discussing the religious teachings from Makoto's original world, trying to understand why such buildings could appear. After some time, they arrive in front of the shrine's main building, whose doors are tightly closed. Makoto senses the presence of someone inside. Without hesitation, he calls out to that presence and tells them to stop hiding. As if responding to his call, the shrine's curtains and sliding doors slowly open. The movement is extremely smooth, clearly guided by magic rather than human hands. Behind the doors, a shrine maiden is visible, sitting formally with her head bowed until it touches the floor as a sign of respect. However, the atmosphere suddenly becomes suffocating the moment the girl addresses Makoto with the title Goshujin-sama. Although she does not emit any dangerous aura, the girl's presence creates a mental pressure that causes Makoto to unconsciously hold his breath. Slowly, the girl raises her face. Her skin is pale, far too pale for an ordinary human. Her black hair and brown eyes make her look Japanese, but her aura is clearly not human. With a gentle smile, she introduces herself. She states that she was once a servant of the god Tsukuyomi. However, by the god's command, her status has now changed. From this moment on, she swears to serve Makoto as his attendant. So, that is the recap of Part 18 from Tsukimichi, Moonlit Fantasy.